I don't think it's going all 8 rounds. Someone's going to get put to sleep. And so fans got to see that live.
Whoa, 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 now. You got too much dip on your chip.
Make sure y'all stay on point with the Puncher's Point. What is good, y'all? Welcome back to the Puncher's Point. We got another preview and prediction episode for y'all. Miami, Florida, December 19th. The great Anthony Joshua, future boxing Hall of Famer, former heavyweight champion, is going to be going up against no other than one of the hottest boxing topics to date, Jake Paul. El Gallo, as he likes to call himself. Now, overall, both of these guys, two completely different paths to get into this fight. Obviously, we know about Anthony Joshua. See, here's the crazy thing. Anthony Joshua, when we look back at his career, this is going to be a guy that we're going to say that he fought everybody that needs to be fought. His resume is absolutely stacked with nothing but legends on that resume, to be honest with you. And when you go and you look at Anthony Joshua's resume and his legacy, you can really see how established he is. I mean, you name the fighters, the heavyweight fighters within the 21st century, most likely Anthony Joshua was in that ring with them. You're talking about guys like Klitschko, Andy Ruiz, Alexander Usyk, Alexander Povetkin, Pulev, Joseph Parker, Daniel Dubois. I mean, you name him, he's been in the ring with them. So overall, when we go back and we look at Anthony Joshua's career, we can honestly say that he's fought the very best of the best. Jake Paul, not so much. It's kind of the opposite with Jake Paul. You know, he's fought old Mike Tyson. If it wasn't that, then it was a retired MMA fighter. If it wasn't that, then it was an athlete that had no business being in the ring. If it wasn't that, it was an influencer. Overall, Jake Paul's boxing career is surrounded by a bunch of asterisks. It's surrounded by a bunch of criticisms and critiques. And overall, it's funny because now these two are going to be sharing a ring together on December 19th in Miami, Florida. But with all that being said, enough of the chit chat. We are going to be talking about Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. We're going to be going through the breakdown of each fighter. And as you can see on the title of this, is this Jake Paul's biggest mistake in boxing? He's fought some guys. He's fought some dogs, some MMA fighters who were very dangerous, but he hasn't fought a true heavyweight boxer that is relatively still in the prime of their career. I know Anthony Joshua took that brutal loss to Daniel Dubois, but regardless, you're going in the ring with Anthony Joshua. And so the question is, for this episode, is Jake Paul biting a little bit more than what he can chew? Is Jake Paul making the biggest mistake in boxing? We're going to go over that right now. But with that being said, we got to go through the breakdowns first. And the first breakdown that we are going to be going through is none other than Anthony Joshua himself. Now, when I go and I look at Anthony Joshua's strengths and weaknesses, here's what I will say. Y'all know me. If you've seen any prediction episode that I've done, I always like to start off with a favorite punch from every boxer. And to me, it's that powerful right hand that Anthony Joshua got, especially the overhand right. The overhand right is the most powerful punch that Anthony Joshua has. And that's his finishing punch right there. That is the final weapon that he's going to hit you with. That is that punch that he's looking to knock your lights out with. And early in his career, he really established that overhand right. That overhand right was the way he was finishing guys. And you really didn't see Anthony Joshua finish guys with any other punch besides that overhand right. He would hit them with the overhand right, and then he would rock his opponents, and then he would start hitting with some hooks. But the overhand right was the neutralizer. And so for me, that's kind of been the punch that he's been the most comfortable with throughout his entire career. As he started progressing on through his career, as he started fighting better competition, he really started establishing the jab. So Anthony Joshua's got a decent jab on him. Now, I'm not going to say the jab is his biggest weapon or anything like that, but that jab is the setup for a lot of things that Anthony Joshua does. The other thing, too, is Anthony Joshua is an aggressor, and that jab and his pressure are two things that kind of connect. Because Anthony Joshua is such a strong fighter, he's able to use that jab to force opponents on the back foot. And when he forces those opponents on the back foot, he's able to pressure them. He's able to start landing that right hook, or he's able to start landing that right hand. He's able to start landing some hooks, which was another punch of his that's very, very well. That left hook. That left hook is another power punch that he has established throughout the years. The right hand was a punch that he's always had. The left hook was a punch that started becoming established as he started fighting better competition. What I really liked about Anthony Joshua is his counter punches. He's a very good counter puncher, and I feel like a lot of people don't give him a lot of credit for that. He's a good counter puncher because the thing is with Anthony Joshua, he's looking to land that right hand. But Anthony Joshua is very good at slipping punches as well. He doesn't show too much head movement. You know, I wouldn't say he's a slick defensive fighter or anything like that. But what I will say is he's very good at doing the tiny slips, slipping a punch, and then hitting them with a counter. And I do believe that is something that Anthony Joshua has, again, that's something that Anthony Joshua has able to import into his game as the years progress. And with that being said, experience. This might be his biggest strength of all. When you look at the heavyweight fighters of the 21st century, there's not many of them that Anthony Joshua has not been in the ring with. I mean, you name him, Anthony Joshua has been in the ring with those guys. When we go back and we look at Anthony Joshua's resume, when it's all said and done, when we go back and we look at his resume, we're going to look at it and we're going to see exactly how good Anthony Joshua was. We're going to see the guys that he's been in the ring with. And we're going to look at these guys and we're going to be like, that guy was a stud. That guy was a champion. That guy was a dangerous fight. Anthony Joshua has stacked this resume up tremendously. And it's a resume that I don't think is touched by any other heavyweight fighter in this boxing division. I'm including Usyk. I'm including Tyson Fury. Anthony Joshua's got the most names on his resume. And the reason why is because, A, Anthony Joshua is one of the biggest draws in heavyweight boxing history. And number two, the reason why Anthony Joshua has this huge, insane resume is because he's willing to take those dangerous fights, especially earlier on in his career when he had something to prove. So I will say Anthony Joshua has done a very, very good job of continuously fighting the best. He's done a very good job with that, and he's beaten most of the best with that. He can fight on the inside and the outside. Depending on what fighter he needs to fight, he's very good at doing both. I like him better personally on the inside because I feel like once he gets to the inside, he's able to sneak some of those punches in, specifically that uppercut. He's got a very sneaky uppercut. That's another strength of his. But I like him on the inside better because he's able to sneak that uppercut in, sneak some of those hooks in, and he's able to hurt and rock his opponents. Level changing. This is something that Anthony Joshua wasn't really good at in the beginning of his career. If you go back and you look at rookie Anthony Joshua, the young Anthony Joshua was trying to make a name for himself, Anthony Joshua never really went to the body. He always kind of stuck up to the top. And then it wasn't until he started fighting guys like Klitschko, Charles Martin, guys like those. It wasn't until he started fighting those types of guys till you really started seeing him do the level changing, go to the body and come up to the head. He really wasn't doing that when he was younger. But again, with experience, this is another tool that Anthony Joshua has evolved into his game. And that's another strength of his as well, is he's constantly adding something to his game. He's able to cut the ring. That's something that he's been very, very good with from the beginning of his career. Because he's so strong, because he's so powerful, he's able to cut that ring. A lot of these guys that he's knocked out, he's got them on their ropes. And so I do believe that he is very good at cutting that ring because he's such a good pressure fighter. He's very good with feints. Again, another thing that he's established throughout the years, especially in his prime years. And last but not least, he's got heart. Look, a lot of us, y'all are going to question me on that one, but bear with me. You can go and you can look at the Andy Ruiz fight. He got knocked down how many times? 3 or 4? And he kept getting back up. Now, I do remember him being in the corner and saying he doesn't want to continue. I understand all of that. And we're going to get to that as a weakness in a bit. He took a lot of punishment in that Andy Ruiz fight. He took a lot of punishment in the Daniel Dubois fight, but he kept on getting back up. And so with all of that, what are the weaknesses for Anthony Joshua? Well, the biggest one, he overreaches. And if you go back and you look at the Andy Ruiz fight, that's how a lot of those knockdowns started, was by him overreaching. There were moments in the Usyk fight where he would overreach and Usyk would counterpunch him. So for me, the biggest weakness for Anthony Joshua is how he's able to land some of those very, very powerful punches. But if he don't land them, he's in a lot of trouble. And when he don't land those punches, he puts himself in situations where he overreaches and he puts himself in vulnerable situations. Here's the weakness, mentality. He's got the heart. The mentality sometimes ain't there. And that's where you put in the Andy Ruiz fight. A lot of people think that he just didn't have heart in that fight. He got knocked down 3 or 4 times by Andy Ruiz. I don't care who you are. Andy Ruiz is a dog. He is a very dangerous puncher in the heavyweight division. If you get knocked down by Andy Ruiz, a lot of guys, they don't want to continue. Anthony Joshua kept on getting back up. No matter what the knockdown was, he kept on getting back up. And this is where mentality gets into the way. Mentally, sometimes Anthony Joshua don't got the best game plan. He doesn't stick to it. Mentally, something happens to Anthony Joshua. And I believe that was the case in the first Usyk fight, I believe, where he just lost it and he took the mic and he started speaking and he was really frustrated. Mentally, Anthony Joshua, sometimes he's just not there. Mentally, Anthony Joshua kind of becomes a little bit weak. But with that being said, there's also times where Anthony Joshua is mentally strong and he's got the willpower. Look at Klitschko, where he was in that Klitschko fight and he got knocked down, he got back up, and he was able to defeat Vladimir Klitschko. Look at those fights where he was able to get into the ring with some of these guys and he was able to have 12-round fights and make it close. I still believe he gave Usyk one of his toughest challenges. So, in my opinion, he has times where mentally he's strong, but he also has those times where mentally he's weak. He's careless. There's a lot of times where he drops those hands. There's a lot of times where he'll drop those hands, and again, it'll cause openings for fighters to take advantage of. I do believe he came into the Andy Ruiz fight unprepared, unready. I do believe he probably took Andy Ruiz for granted, or he overestimated Andy Ruiz, and I believe that was the case. I do believe that in fights like the Daniel Dubois fight, he overestimated Daniel Dubois, and that's what happened. But he's very careless because he tends to drop those hands a lot. And that's how Daniel Dubois knocked him down the first time, I believe. He dropped his hands, Daniel Dubois clipped him, down with Anthony Joshua. The left hook and the overhand. In my opinion, the left hook is a punch that Anthony Joshua is susceptible to, but also the overhand. And I do believe those are two punches that have gotten the best of Anthony Joshua throughout his career. And then last but not least, he relies too much on that right hand. That right hand is his bread and butter. Like I said, he's had that tool since his pro debut. That is his bread and butter. But the problem with Anthony Joshua is he relies too much on that right hand. And when that right hand can't click, he's in trouble. So for me, going through the breakdown of Anthony Joshua, those would be his biggest strengths and weaknesses. And I do believe that if you go back and you watch the Anthony Joshua fights, you can see them. Let's get to the strengths of Jake Paul. Now, as far as Jake Paul, if I had to point to the biggest strength, I would say it's that right hand. He's got a very, very powerful right hand. And in my opinion, the two best punches that he throws with it is number one, the overhand right, and number two, that uppercut. Those are the two punches that he loves to throw with that right hand. And that right hand has done him a lot of justice. It's done him a lot of good. Obviously, he's had a lot of knockouts with that right hand. And overall, that right hand is a punch that, regardless of whether or not you want to take Jake Paul seriously or not, you got to watch out for that right hand. And I'm just going to say how it is. That's a dangerous right hand that he's got right there. The other thing, too, is he's got a good tempo. This guy's very good at controlling the speed of a fight. You know, whether he's pressuring or whether he's trying to box, he's very good at controlling the speed of a fight. And I will give him credit on that. Regardless of who he's been in the ring with, every single time he's in the ring with somebody, he's always been good at controlling the speed of that fight and basically moving at his own pace, not moving at somebody else's. And he does a very good job of keeping that pace for the entirety of the fight. His check left hook, to me, that would be a secondary punch of his. He likes that check left hook. He loves to throw it in situations where guys tend to overreach or overlean. That's the punch he usually likes to throw. And so I would say it is a sneaky check left hook, and I would be aware of that. He's got a good right uppercut, as I mentioned. The other thing about Jake Paul as well is consistent to the body. He's very consistent to the body. He's not that type of guy that's going to hit you in the body. He's going to hurt you with a body shot. He's not that guy. But what he is he's that guy who's going to throw some jabs to the body. You know, he's going to tap you on the body. He's going to get his points through the body. He's very consistent, too, going to that body. He doesn't just stick up top. He's very consistent at going to that body, sneaking some body shots in, and landing some sneaky punches. His timing's very good. And again, even though these are guys that aren't what you call elite competition, his timing is good when it comes to these guys. Very good at hitting them with some counters. He's very good at timing that right hand. I really do like Jake Paul's timing. Consistent jab. Now, even though I don't think he's established his jab 100%, I don't think that he has a very powerful jab. He still uses it correctly, in my opinion. He does a very good job of using that jab to set up power punches or set up that right hand. So I'll give him the credit on that jab. Decent movement. The thing about Jake Paul is he's not that type of guy that's got this Usyk footwork or this Lomachenko footwork. I'm not going to say that he's one of the best boxers when it comes to footwork or anything like that. But what I will say, he's got some decent movement. He is very good at moving around the ring. He's good at constantly moving and not staying still in one place. And then last but not least, discipline. Look, you guys can say what you want about Jake Paul. You can talk about how these fights are rigged. You can talk about how much you don't like him. You can talk about how much of an a-hole he is. You can say all these things. But the one thing about Jake Paul that you got to give him a lot of credit for is his discipline. Since being in boxing, this guy has not tested positive for anything. This guy hasn't got arrested or got in trouble with the law for anything like that. Jake Paul is consistently in that gym working on his craft, and I got to give him respect on that, honestly. Regardless of how I feel about the guy, I'm not a big Jake Paul fan by no means. You got to give him respect. This guy is constantly in the gym perfecting his craft. He's constantly bringing in some of the best guys. Whenever he's got a fight coming up, he's always focused in training camp. And regardless of whatever antics he might have, he's always disciplined. Now, with all of that being said, what are the weaknesses for Jake Paul? Well, first one I will say is we could point to his lack of competition. I mean, I've said it before. Old boxers like Mike Tyson, past their prime MMA fighters, athletes who have no right to be in the ring, and influencers. Those are the 4 types of guys he's fought. And overall, when we look at those fights, there's always going to be some type of asterisk on it. Well, this guy was past his prime. This guy's too old. This guy's not a boxer. This guy's not a fighter. His lack of competition is the problem here. The other thing I will say is he has limited combos. You see, the ones that he loves to do is jab, overhand right. That's his favorite combo. That's his favorite 1-2. Sometimes he'll add a little bit of a hook to it as well. But other than that, his combos are very, very limited. I haven't seen him throw anything besides those 3 punches as far as like a chain combo, and I would like to see him be a little bit more versatile. But in my opinion, the combos are limited. He struggles on the back foot. You can go watch the fight with Tommy Fury. You can go watch the first fight with Tyron Woodley. When you get Jake Paul on that back foot, you see that he starts putting himself in trouble. I'm not going to lie. He's improving a little bit, little by little. Like we've seen it in the Chavez fight where Chavez tried to get him up against the ropes and he kind of turned the tables on him. But that's also because Chavez isn't the fastest fighter. So for me, I would say a weakness of his is once he gets pressured, once the guy starts landing shots on him, he doesn't know how to respond to them. His hooks, sometimes he throws those hooks and they're too wide. And that's the problem right there. When you're throwing wide hooks and he gets caught with something, he's going to be in some trouble, especially against a guy like Anthony Joshua, who's just a bigger guy in general and a guy who's been very dominant in the heavyweight division. You're not going to be able to afford throwing wide hooks against a guy like that. That's just the reality of it. So I will say that is a big, crucial weakness in this fight that he cannot make. He struggles with sticking and moving. Tommy Fury, for most of the fight, all he had to do was throw a jab and back out the way. That's really all Tommy Fury had to do. Sometimes he tried to chain some combos together, but Jake Paul really wasn't comfortable with the whole sticking and moving. And I feel like that's something that might be a little bit too advanced for him to fix right now. And it's something that I think Anthony Joshua could take advantage of. And then last but not least, lack of head movement. That's one weakness of Jake Paul's that he hasn't critiqued. He's not slipping punches the way I would like to see him. Sometimes you'll see him duck under a punch, but that's as far as what the bar has for his head movement right now. And to me, those would be his weaknesses. And I do think that right there is a crucial weakness. And so with all of that being said, we go to the betting odds. Not really surprising at all. When it comes to Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua is a minus 700 favorite, while Jake Paul is a plus 1,300 underdog. According to FanDuel, those betting odds are subjected to change as the fight gets closer. And so we look at those betting odds. Now, all of a sudden, we got to get to the keys to victory. Anthony Joshua. Well, the first key to victory is going to be pushing Jake Paul on the back foot. Anthony Joshua is very good at pressure. He's very good at being the aggressor. He's very good at getting these guys against the ropes. Do that with Jake Paul. And if you can do that with Jake Paul's not going to be able to establish that offense at all. He's going to struggle, and I don't think that he can respond very well if you put him on his back foot. The second thing I would say is counter after he throws wild punches, specifically the wild hooks. And I've mentioned it. There's been moments where Jake Paul has swung at the wind and he's caught nothing but air. Take advantage of those opportunities. And if you can, I feel like you're going to get Jake Paul out of there early. And last but not least, stick the jab and move. You were in the ring with Alexander Usyk, who has probably some of the best footwork that we've seen in the heavyweight division in history. So for me, I feel like if you can catch up and keep up with Usyk, again, those 2 fights that you had with him, they were very close. If you can keep up with Alexander Usyk, you can keep up with Jake Paul. And when nothing else works, that stick the jab and move will. As long as he keeps on doing that, I do believe that he's going to have Jake Paul second guessing a lot of things. And I do believe that if you can keep Jake Paul behind that jab, I do believe it's going to be an easy night for Anthony Joshua. Now, with that being said, what are the keys to victory for Jake Paul? The first one is take advantage when Anthony Joshua overreaches. He's going to overreach. That's just a habit that Anthony Joshua has had his whole career. That's worked against him. Take advantage of those opportunities when he overreaches. When he overreaches, that's when you hit him with some of those counters. Neutralize the right hand. Now, I could say the same thing about Anthony Joshua when it comes to Jake Paul, because Jake Paul has that right hand. But for Jake Paul, you really have to neutralize that right hand, because if you can't, you're going to be out, and it's going to be a very, very quick night. Neutralize that right hand. Whatever you do, stay away from Anthony Joshua's right hand. Force Anthony Joshua to dig into his bag. Force Anthony Joshua to beat you another way. But you cannot let him beat you with that right hand. And last but not least, be more versatile. I don't want to see the same combo. I don't want to see you try to jab to the body and come up top with that right hand. I've seen it way too many times. What I want to see you do, I want to see you start with a lead hook. I want to see you throw something else besides the right hand with your jab. I want to see you go to the body a lot more. I want to see feints. I want to see you be versatile. I want to look at this fight. If I want to see Jake Paul improve, I want to look at this fight and be like, Jake did a very good job of this. Jake wasn't predictable. That's what I need to see from Jake Paul. And so, with all of that being said, what is my prediction? Well, surprisingly, this is a close fight. And I'm going to explain why. It shouldn't be a close fight. But surprisingly, this is going to be a close fight. So, the reason why I say that is because, look, there's a lot of uncertainty when we go into Jake Paul fights. This should be easy. I mean, this should just be quick and simple, Anthony Joshua by knockout. But let's be real. In the boxing community, if we're going to be honest, in the boxing community, how many times have we said that with Jake Paul? Oh, he's going to lose to this guy. He's going to lose to this guy. This guy's going to embarrass him. And it just never happened. And again, y'all can point to the theory of it being rigged. Y'all can say he's a real fighter. Whatever side you want to lean on, that's on you. But in my opinion, that's what makes this fight so hard. Because we're uncertain about all the details. And even if this fight is real, if this fight's legit, there's a lot of questions behind Anthony Joshua. Has he recovered after the Daniel Dubois fight? You know, what mentality is Anthony Joshua going to have coming into this fight? Is he here just to make the big bag? Is he here to steer his career back into the right direction? Because we've seen him go up against guys like Francis Ngannou, who was a very, very dangerous risk for him to have. Again, high risk, low reward. And he was able to go in there and completely KO Francis Ngannou and then steer his career back in the right direction again before that Dubois fight. But is this that same scenario? Is Anthony Joshua going to bounce back after a tough loss to Daniel Dubois? And then you got the questions about Jake Paul. I mean, look, a lot of these times Jake Paul is bigger than his opponents, you know? But in this fight, not so much. I mean, I could see Anthony Joshua coming into this fight at like 250, 255. And I could see Jake Paul coming in at like 230. So there's going to be that 20-pound weight difference. And it's going to be interesting to see how Jake Paul handles a real heavyweight fighter in their prime. Not Mike Tyson, who's 60 years old. A real heavyweight fighter who is in their prime. It's going to be very interesting to see. So there's a lot of questions here. But the prediction, here's what I will say. Here's how I can see this fight happening. Again, Anthony Joshua, y'all seen it in the past. He's chinny. So I wouldn't be surprised if Jake Paul lands a knockdown. I wouldn't be surprised about it. The question is, how is Anthony Joshua going to respond? In my opinion, I don't think Anthony Joshua can afford a knockdown in this fight, because if that's the case, if he gets knocked down, I don't think Anthony Joshua recovers. But with all of that being said, when we look at everything, Jake Paul has not been into the ring with a boxer in their prime. He's going into the heavyweight division fighting a guy who's probably going to come in at 250 pounds and is going to be well conditioned for 12 rounds. And if Anthony Joshua comes into this fight ready, I just don't see Jake Paul winning this fight. And that's what I'm banking on, that Anthony Joshua is going to come into this fight ready, that he's not going to come in just messing around. I do believe that he's going to go in there and he's going to defeat Jake Paul. I don't think he's going to knock out Jake Paul. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I don't think he'll knock him out. I think there'll be times where he hurts him. I think Jake Paul will survive, but I don't think he's knocking out Jake Paul. But with that being said, I'm going to have Anthony Joshua by unanimous decision. I think Anthony Joshua is going to go in there. I think he's going to stick and move. It's going to be kind of like what Tommy Fury did. Stick and move, basically do what Tommy Fury did, frustrate Jake Paul. And then from there, he might land some power punches that's going to hurt Jake Paul. I think Jake Paul, after feeling those power punches, is going to be a lot more conservative. He's not going to take a lot of risks. And I do think that Jake Paul won't get knocked out, but I do think this fight will go the distance, and I think Anthony Joshua is going to win it. As far as is it okay to bet for Jake Paul, in my opinion, in this fight, yes. And the reason why is because, again, a part of me can see Jake Paul landing a shot on Anthony Joshua and clipping him. But again, the guys that have clipped Anthony Joshua are guys like Daniel Dubois, are guys like Andrew Ruiz, who look to go in there and knock your ass out. Those are the guys that are going in there and are making light work of Anthony Joshua. It's not guys like Jake Paul, because Jake Paul's going to have to box. I don't think Jake Paul has the power to knock out Anthony Joshua. There's so many questions in this fight. What's the mentality of Anthony Joshua? What is his mentality going into this fight? Is Jake Paul ready for heavyweight? There's a lot of things that are going to have to be answered in this fight. I think it is an interesting fight. Now, look, am I happy to see it? Not really. Am I mad at it? No. Again, we said we wanted Jake Paul to fight a real boxer. He's fighting a real boxer. You know, he's fighting Anthony Joshua. Now because he's fighting, a lot of people don't believe that it's real or not. So overall, time's going to tell. You know, I mean, again, it's only a matter of time. So we'll see. But as of right now, I have to go with the impression that Jake Paul is a real boxer. That's what I have to go with the impression of, because I don't have hard, solidified evidence to where I can lean on. I can go into this episode and say, oh, Jake Paul's a fraud. These fights are rigged. I could go in there. I could get 1 million views, but I'm not going to say something that I don't have full proof on. So as of right now, Jake Paul is a real boxer until proven otherwise. And so with all of that being said, it's time for us to log off. Make sure y'all continue to tune into the Puncher's Point. Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua, December 19th, Miami, Florida. Again, it's going to be pretty interesting. It really is. And overall, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to be right back after that fight with a post-fight episode, so make sure y'all definitely tune in for that. And with that being said, continue to tune into the Puncher's Point. Continue to tune into the YouTube, all podcast platforms, the social medias. Make sure y'all continue to like, comment, follow, subscribe, share, do all those beautiful things. And last but not least, make sure y'all continue to stay on point with the Puncher's Point.